pressed in my life is hitting this button. Okay, I think we're live. Let's see. God.
Watson, come here. I need you.
Do this.
Live at night, take one.
Yeah, okay, I see everybody here, and I can see.
I just lost everybody.
That I don't know how to help you with. Yeah, this is a new thing.
I lost all the audio.
Can you guys? Can everybody else hear?
I can hear, and I can hear everyone else talking.
Yeah. Wait, we got one.
I can hear Michael.
How about
here?
Everybody else is frozen.
And Nick Ferrara is here too. Nick, can you hear us all?
Hello, everybody. I can hear you.
Glenn, can you hear us? Can you hear me? Oh, Glenn, you might be watching it on Facebook. You need to come back to the. You might need to come back to the live.
Everybody's frozen on me.
All right.
You might have to go to the StreamYard tab if you have it open, Glenn.
Where is this button? Record. Anyway, we're live.
Countdown. Yeah, you're live.
Yeah, I'm live. So hey, we're live at night. I don't know if Glenn can hear us. Glenn, can you hear?
This isn't as clear as
Zoom? I understand, but this is being broadcast now on 2 platforms. So we wanted to try to maximize the potential of people watching it. That's why we did this.
What YouTube
That's
is
good because I'm on my second drink. So
Okay, great. That's a good question. What YouTube it's on? It's on the pop-up podcast YouTube.
Everybody keeps coming in and out. Audio keeps coming in and out on everybody.
Maybe try to turn your speakers on and off. Maybe
Wait, let me shake my phone.
Yeah. It's the virtual technology. Now, there is no button here to record this, so I am just going to hope that it just
only live. It's only live.
Well,
One time only. One time only.
what's up, Tim?
What's up?
What's the word for that? Ephemeral? It's only live. It's fleeting.
Yeah.
It's one and done.
Okay. I don't know. Glenn, are you okay? Well, I'm worried about Glenn. Glenn is totally frozen now. He's frozen in time. Maybe we should eliminate him and allow him to come back. Let's see how that plays out. Kick from studio. Glenn, I'm kicking you out of the studio. Come back.
Come back.
I like how they call it the studio.
Yeah. Okay. Hey guys. We're live at night, and hopefully Glenn comes back. Glenn is in the B Street Band. Are you guys aware of what that is?
That's a Bruce Springsteen cover band.
That's right. Yes, and I'm sure Nick knows who the B Street Band is. Yes.
I have seen them many times.
Did you know Glenn before he left and was kicked out of the room?
I thought you were kicked out of the band. I was like,
No.
there's a story I want to hear.
I saw them down the shore one time.
Yeah.
Maybe just even a few years ago, and I was talking to some of the band members during their break. They were outside catching a smoke, whatever, and I just happened to be out there, and we were just talking a little bit.
Yeah.
Other than that, I really don't know the band members.
Okay. And so last time we did Live at Night, we all brought these really awesome stories. We had Tom Rader on, the John Lennon cover band, the Beatles cover
Impersonator.
band. Yes. I'm trying to clean that up. Cover band lead front man, right? Not impersonator. But
right.
Now Nick Ferraro is known in some circles as the Philly Elvis. Is that true, right?
That name was actually given to me by Bruce Springsteen.
There you go. So we're going to let you tell that story tonight. And so these guys are going to just love this story. And the usual suspects are back. Mike Walter's back, and Tim Hillman's back, and Chris D'Amico are back.
Peter, please say that slowly because it sounded like you put an S on the end of my name.
No, I did not.
Walters is back. I know it just sounded so just pronounce that, just slow it down a little bit.
Yeah,
Mike Walter is back.
Yeah.
It's been a long day. Somebody put the S on the end of my name, I might lose it.
Okay.
So
Listen, okay, it's been a long day. I want to ask you, I saw that you're finally going live. You're finally DJing live. Yesterday,
extremely frustrating.
Okay. Oh,
I got bumped 3 times. I got bumped twice today in an hour.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't.
Just internet connections?
No, Facebook, because I'm playing commercial music. And, somebody told me if I put a little white noise underneath it, they won't do it. I put white noise underneath. I still got bumped.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, people are commenting, "Hey, what's that hissing sound underneath here?" And I'm like, "That's supposed to block the freaking algorithm." And then also people said, if you talk on the microphone, and so I was on the microphone the whole time talking up each song. Didn't matter. I got bumped twice. So I don't know.
Man, and so last night I had a big show for the 90210 fans, right? We got the two producers of Beverly Hills 90210 to come on live and give us all the scoops, everything that they ever wanted to know. They come in, they're super excited. Oh my God, everybody's talking like we're doing right now,
Don't tell me that got bumped.
The fucking Facebook link would not work.
Well, it wouldn't work. Oh, okay.
Whatever Tim said, there was too many people on Facebook, whatever. So that was dramatic, which is now why we're on, what is it, Shipyard, StreamYard? We're trying something new. Anyway, before we get into the records that shaped us again, how is everybody doing now? I don't even know what day we are in quarantine. I've lost total track.
It's been a month ago today. The CDC said no more large group gatherings. That was March 15th. So it's exactly 1 month ago today.
All right. Well, happy 1 month quarantine, everyone.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah. Is everybody drinking something? I've got a.
Does it seem like 6 months?
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Yeah.
It's like a pause.
I
don't know how long it feels. It just feels like it's been this perpetual pause.
Tim, I can't hear Tim. Is Tim mic'd?
I am mic'd. Can you hear me?
I would just like to point out the two Bruce Springsteen guys couldn't hear shit. So I don't know. But you can hear me, Nick?
Yeah, I can hear everybody but Tim.
But I'm silenced.
Can you hear Tim?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear Tim. I can hear everybody else, but
I can attempt the microphone.
Nick, you are very low to me.
Yeah,
everyone else is good.
You might have an issue on your own end.
Mike, by the way, you get a half an hour before they kick you off.
Is that well? No, that's not the case because they kicked me off after 10 minutes. Then the second time I did last almost a half hour, and then the last time I finished on my own accord at 10 minutes.
Wow, it's like a video game you're playing, like seeing how long you can stay alive.
It is. It's pretty much, yeah.
We're doing happy hours. Like I'm just play stuff for like an hour,
and they boot you after a half hour.
Yeah, after about a half hour, I get bumped, and I got to restart another stream.
Yeah.
That's a pain in the ass.
I was on Facebook earlier, and at least 7 or 8 of my DJ friends were streaming live. So I'm like, Facebook is just trying to tell us to slow down. Like, slow down, guys. It's too much of this,
It's almost like they just have decided, no, not everybody can be a broadcaster at this point.
Exactly.
I want to see what's going on with B Street Band. Can you come back in? He like totally froze out. Okay, so do we think this is going to go another 2 more weeks?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
What,
the April 3rd.
Sheltering in place?
Yeah.
Fucking A, of course, man. Yeah, we're not. I don't even know that we're at the halfway point yet.
Oh man. Okay.
And I'm the optimist in the group.
What do you think, Tim? I'm really hoping whenever you say that Nick's like, I got it, I heard him. What do you think? Do you think we're staying in longer?
I think we're going to be in here until the end of May.
Okay. Now, with that being said,
Here, Tim.
I don't know how to help you on that, Nick.
I can hear everybody but Tim. It's crazy.
Yeah.
If I go closer, can you hear me now?
Hello.
Turn off the fuck Nick button, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear Nick fine.
The good news is people are saying that
Uh-oh, we lost Pete.
We lost the host of the show. There it is.
StreamYard may not be the way to go.
Okay, Chris, you're the new host. Go ahead.
The show must go on.
Sorry about that, guys. Sorry.
And we're back.
I have no idea. I tried to get this thing out of the way. Fuck. Anyway, sorry. I'm back. Anyway, people are saying that StreamYard's amazing. So far, not so much.
People are saying, is that like a Trumpism?
Is
People are
that a
saying?
Trumpism?
Okay.
Everybody's saying.
It's tremendous.
Everyone's saying it.
People from China are saying that it's great. Okay, so somebody, I'm getting Facebook messages now, which is great in this platform. I mean, Zoom doesn't have this. Zoom, wake the fuck up. Okay, look.
Oh, we're getting live comments. Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, can you guys see that in the?
I can see it.
Yeah. Okay. So Tony Manja, I'm here.
Oh yeah, Nick Cavalieri. StreamYard is amazing. Most bigger name musicians are using this. It's crystal clear.
Okay, Nick. Why
most of you sound amazing? Who doesn't sound amazing, Nick?
Nick Cavalieri. Why can't Nick Ferraro hear Tim Hillman then? Like walk us through that. It's hard with chat.
It's a generational thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Tim's too young.
I'll come back in 20 years.
Did you hear that, Nick? Did you hear what Tim just said? I'll come back in 20 years.
No, I can't hear him. I hear everybody but Tim.
Let me try a microphone. This is just a weird.
Okay.
I'm going to try a microphone.
I'm so happy that this is happening with this group and not the two producers of 90210. Right?
So did you ever get online with them last night?
We did YouTube through Zoom. Yeah.
Oh,
it was great.
okay.
Yes. And everybody transferred over. Everybody's talking about it. It was a very great interview. They're great. We're going to do a lot more with them. So that's exciting. Go ahead, Nick. You had a question.
Pete, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We all hear you. Yeah. I mean, the only person that's not being heard is evidently Tim.
But I hear Tim.
Yeah, I hear Tim great.
All right.
It's got to be a Nick.
I may go radio silent for a second. But
I can hear Chris.
Are we just going to do 90 minutes of this?
Learning.
Is this thing on?
The good news is that
Take it off my lawn.
Check.
Nick, not the other Nick. I'm going to ask Nick Cavalieri. How do you say that, Mike?
Cavalieri.
Cavalieri.
You got to do this as you say it. It helps.
Can you
Cavalieri.
explain to me how I can hit record inside this room? If you know how to do this, since you said that this is the most amazing platform in the world. I figured you literally turned into Shipyard's tech support. Okay.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Nick,
Nick, can you hear
Can
me
you
now?
hear Tim now?
I
Hey.
cannot hear Tim.
All right, we're going to have to just translate everything that Tim says.
All
for
right.
Nick.
yeah, or maybe you should leave and come back in. Why don't you-
I'll do sign language.
People are saying that Nick Ferraro is very low, so maybe you should leave and come back into the room.
Do,
All right.
do
How
the
I
tech
leave?
support hard reset.
The two Bruce
leave.
guys have
I'm
left
gonna
the room, so
All
there
right.
there we go. The two Bruce guys have left. Oh, now it's so much better. Okay, so you Tim, you think it's going to be expanded? This thing we're going to be.
The interesting thing is, I'm hearing from my friend Kylan, who lives down in Virginia, that their governor is thinking about extending this to August.
Wow.
Which is crazy because they don't have as many, nearly as many cases that we have by us in Jersey, New York. But they're like preemptively being like, we're just hard hitting and going into August. So that would be a wild move. But I think if that's any sense of the scope of things, then at least May at this point.
And what do you think? Oh, sorry. So Tim, okay, the big question that we ask you every time that you're here. Tim is supposed to get married on May 16th. Now
You're holding steady right now, Tim?
You literally just told us what your friend Kyle or whatever the fuck the name was.
So right now I mean, to catch people up on the scenario is that we've been trying to work with our venue, but the venue has been few and far between in emails. We gave them 5 dates, and they were not available for those. So we were like, all right, let's just cut the email back and forth. Let's just do a phone call to see when we can make a new date. And I just haven't heard back.
Now Nick Ferraro is back.
Nick's back. Can you hear me, Nick?
Yes. Yo.
All right.
I was going to be like Garrett Morris.
Okay.
Can you hear Tim?
Wait a minute. I can't hear Chris now.
Are you serious?
No, I'm kidding.
Fucking good. All right. So Tim, I'm sorry. Finish up that note there. What you were saying.
Oh, yeah. So the short end of the story is that there hasn't been a new date made, but we're still on the books for May 16th.
Shit.
Even though there's literally nothing on my calendar right now for May. It's just cleared out. Everything's postponed. Besides our wedding.
Mike Walters, how are you? No, just kidding.
Mike Walters.
No,
It's
Chris,
official. There's an S now.
Are we stuck in here? But I'm going to tell you guys now. Chris and I, we're kind of talking about this. The one thing that we like about this, obviously, this is horrific. What's happening with people, right? That they have this virus. We're seeing a lot of loss and whatnot, and it's horrific. But the one thing that's great is, hey, we're doing this. I'm sure you're broadcasting live, Mike. I'm sure you're finding some things that you're doing that you weren't doing maybe if you had to be out and about, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you want to find silver linings, I mean, I'm in the best shape I've been in 30 years. I've been working out every morning, hitting the weights down here, hitting the life cycle. I've got all this time on my hands. I'm not going to let it go to waste. So there's that. There's this. I've Zoomed with my parents a couple times and, connected with friends that I've never connected with. So, yeah, if those are silver linings. But, I mean, between the loss of life and the loss of livelihood, it to me, it doesn't balance out. I mean, all these silver lining things are great, but they don't balance out.
Yeah, well, that's true. Okay, guys, so we're going to jump into some record stuff, but I want Nick Ferraro to tell you guys this incredible story. It's going to be it's a long story, so but it's a good one.
Okay.
So Nick, tell everybody how you got named the Philly Elvis.
All right, so I'll try and make it quick. And by the way, I don't know if you have seen it yet, but on Netflix, there's a documentary called Springsteen and I.
Mm-hmm.
The documentary about Springsteen and all how he intertwined with all of his fans throughout the years. And I was interviewed in Philadelphia with my wife and I. So what I'm about to tell you is actually in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's on Netflix. It's called Springsteen and I. But so I've been an entertainer since 1986 and played with bands and as a lead singer. And then over the years, we were a show band as well. And one of the shows we did was an Elvis show. So I did a tribute to Elvis. And we had a girl in the band, Anna, consider her my sister. She did a Patsy Cline show. We were really good, played cruise ships. Opened up for a lot of oldie bands like the Coasters, the Drifters, Platters, Marvelettes, Bobby Rydell, that whole group. And so for years, I kept telling my band members, one day I'm going to get on stage with Springsteen in front of thousands of people to do one song. Like that was my ultimate bucket list. And of course, it's like, yeah, right.
It's never going to happen.
All right. So in 2009 at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, right before they blew it up, Springsteen was the second to the last band played at the Spectrum before they blew it up. My wife and I, we had an idea that I would go to the show dressed as Elvis and I have a sign that said, "Can the King sing with the boss?" So first, if you're familiar with his shows, you have to in order to get right in front of the stage, you have to win the lottery. You have to get a floor ticket first, which is hard to do. And then you have to be at the top of the lottery to get right in front of the stage. So all the stars were in line. All that happened. So we ended up getting the 90th person to walk in the Spectrum in front of the stage. So we were standing literally in front of the stage. So here I am in my Elvis suit, and so the show starts and Springsteen walks out and he's walking. And then he sort of looks at me and then walks and then does one of these, and looks at me and he points at me, right? This is the very, very beginning of the show. So he's doing his concert and the whole time he's doing the show, the band members, especially Clarence and everybody else was kidding with me, they're fooling with me and everything. So at the middle of the show, he says, "All right, we're going to try this. We're graced by the King himself." And he starts out and does All Shook Up. So my wife and I, we're dancing and he's singing All Shook Up. Now I had a sign that said, "Can the king sing with the boss?" So he's doing All Shook Up, and I'm thinking to myself, shit, man, he's not going to call me up, but it's cool. It's already been like the greatest night of my life. The fact that the whole band was kidding with me, the fans that were great, So I'm dancing and the cameraman is right on me. So I'm on the big screen at this point. So the whole spectrum now sold out, 20,000 people can see me on the big screen. So in the middle of it, all of a sudden he stops singing. The band keeps playing. He goes, "All right, King, come on up."
Wow.
I'm like,
wow.
Holy shit, this is it, man. Like my freaking, I've been thinking about this for years.
But this is at a time when this isn't a thing. He doesn't do this all the time. He doesn't, invite people up, right?
Well, I'll address that in a second.
Okay.
But so
very presidential.
So yeah. So I remember there's only a couple things I clearly remember. And one is, as I'm getting up on stage, there's people pulling me up because the stage is really high. And he puts his hand out like this to grab my hand. And I remember saying, "Don't touch him. Don't touch him." I don't know why, maybe respect or whatever, but I didn't want to touch his hand. So I got up on my own and I stood there not knowing what's going to happen. The crowd's going crazy. I'm standing like face to face. He hands me the mic. I'm like, okay. So I grabbed the mic and then I just started singing All Shook Up and the band's playing. And I started walking away. And the guy who recorded this is all on YouTube. The guy, it's got like over half a million hits now.
There we go. Okay.
The guy who recorded it, he did it so perfect. He did it so perfect that he left me and showed Bruce right when Bruce looks at Steve Van Zandt and shrugs his shoulders like, okay, let him go. Like you know what I mean? Like this is all off the cuff, So I'm doing All Shook Up. So I fall to my knees and I pull my hamstring. I kick my leg out. I pull my hamstring as I'm singing. But you can't tell because it looks like an Elvis move. Right? I had my leg out, it looks like an Elvis move, but I pulled my hamstring. So I stand up, and at this point, I could hear myself singing off key because just the emotion and the fact that they got all their ear monitors, and I'm like, all I hear is Max's drum and whoever was behind me. So I'm like, I gotta fix this because I hear myself singing off key. So I just go, "Hit it, Bruce." So he does this guitar solo. So he's doing the guitar solo. I back up. Now this is all again, right? Totally off the cuff. I back up. And I'm thinking, well, shit, now where do we go? He's doing a guitar solo, right? There is no guitar solo in All Shook Up. So I look at Max, and at the very end of the guitar solo, I got my hand up because as a lead singer, right, for years, and the band members, they always look at the lead singer. Max looks at me. If you see the video, Max is smiling. And then when he looks at me, he stops smiling because Max knows I'm about to do something. And at the end of the guitar solo, I changed the song completely. I went into Blue Suede Shoes. I went, well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show. Then we started doing Blue Suede Shoes. So at this point, it's completely out of control, right? I don't know how to stop this train, right? And I don't think Bruce does at this point. So I'm singing now Blue Suede Shoes, and I see Bruce coming up. And now, as he's looking at me, I'm saying to myself, "Oh shit, Nick, you're done." Like, so I go, "Take it home, Bruce." So I give Bruce the mic and he gets it and he goes, "Elvis has left the building," meaning, okay, get the fuck off my
Get off the stage.
But it was great, man. So I jump off the stage and Bruce, like when you see the video, you can see all the band members were just laughing their ass off. Like it was such a great moment, So Bruce is playing, and then he ends the song and he holds the note, the whole band's holding the note. And he looks at me. And for the first time, I'm called the Philly Elvis because it was in Philly. He goes, "The Philly Elvis, the Philly Elvis." And then he goes, "I have no idea where the fuck he came from." And then he ends it. And I think he said that because he wanted to let the audience know that I wasn't, what do you call it?
A plant.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't a plant. That It was just totally off the cuff, And it's and that was 2009. And from then on, I mean, I can go on and on how this has just totally grown, but it got to a point where now I play every year for the Clarence Clemens birthday bash in Jersey and got to meet so many great, terrific, unbelievable musicians and people in Jersey.
Yeah.
And and I did. They invited me to do to sing at the Born the Run 40th anniversary, and Max was there. And this is getting to your point, what you asked me earlier.
Yeah.
So Max Weinberg was there. So Max was playing on stage during a couple songs, and I was coming on at the very next song. So Max was the guest drummer for a couple songs. He gets off, he comes out and he sees me. And I go, "Hey, Max." And he looks at me. I'm in my Elvis suit. And then he goes, "Wait, I know you." He says to me, I said, "Yeah, Max, I'm the Philly Elvis." I was on stage. He's like, yeah. And I'm about to go on. And like he stops me. He goes, and then he starts asking me questions like, hey, you know, so we're talking for about 10 minutes as I'm about to go on. And then he asked me, and I think I'm addressing your question, Pete.
Yeah.
Because then I asked Max, I said, "Max, listen," I said, "no bullshit, man." I said, "Please tell me, I'm dying to know." I said, "What did Bruce say anything like, you know, after it was over, or did he think I was an asshole?" I mean, I didn't know, you know, I don't know what. And he said, "Man," he goes, "he loved it." He goes, "We all loved it." He goes, "And I got to tell you," he said, "you know, as you know, I've been with this band for many years, played, you know, hundreds, thousands of concerts with Bruce. I've never seen where he brought someone from the audience, gave him the mic, and let him go."
Right.
He said, "I couldn't believe he did that because Bruce, he's control, you know, he controls everything." And he said at that moment, man, he literally just gave the keys to the Cadillac to me, you know, and it's crazy. So yeah, but it's just a crazy,
it's an incredible
crazy
story, right? Yeah. But also there was a point of that story where you chickened out one other time. So this was a destiny moment for you, right? Like you went there.
Was. Well, I didn't want to get into that far back, but you're right. There were two other times when I brought my Elvis suit. And one was at Hershey, and the other was in Philly.
Yeah.
And I had it, and I was ready to put it on, and I'm like, "I'm not doing it." My wife's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Nah, I feel stupid. You know, he thinks it's going to be stupid. I feel stupid. I'm not doing it." So the third time, which was that show at the Spectrum, I chickened out again. I said, "Dottie, I'm not going to put my suit on." She goes, "Well, you promised me this time, and you're doing it." Because I did promise her. I said, "I promise next time."
Yeah, man. It's fucking great. Yeah, Tony Mon just said he watched the video. He just watched it on YouTube. So somewhere on YouTube, what do you have to don't leave the show to fucking watch things. But if you if you want to pull it, where is it on YouTube? What is
If you go to YouTube, if you can watch the whole thing develop, where you just type in "all shook up Springsteen."
Yeah.
And it's the one that's got, I think, like close to 500,000 hits or something. There's so many different videos of that moment, but that's the main one. You type in.
So Nick, does he normally do that song in concert, or did he do that song that night because he saw an Elvis guy in the front row?
This is 100% fact. He did that song because I was in the audience.
Wow, that's pretty amazing that him and the band knew it and were able to turn on a dime like that. That's pretty good.
Mike, when you see the video in the very beginning, he goes dun dun dun. All right, he calls out the key, like he was playing with his guitar for a few seconds to try and get it, and then he calls it out to the band, and then they went.
Right.
But then the crazy part was, this was my belief in them, in being the musicians that they are. I changed the song and went in the blue suede shoes. And they were right with me. Like it was, and that's why people thought, "Oh, crap, this is a plan," you know.
Right.
You know, but he never did "All Shook Up" prior to that moment. That was the first time he ever did that. That's 100% fact. First time he ever did that.
Yeah, if you Google Philly Elvis Springsteen, somebody said it in the comments. Your video is the first to come up. Don't do it now.
Yeah, wait on this. A lot to cover here, guys.
But after this is all over, which should be what, 2 a.m.
We just keep rolling. Yeah.
But hey, Mike, but if you go to Netflix and watch Springsteen and I, on YouTube, you just see the video, you see the moment. But Springsteen and I, they filmed my wife and I sitting at a park bench in South Philadelphia, eating a cheesesteak, by the way, telling the story that I just told you.
Yeah.
But we'll tell a little bit of the story, and then they go to that moment.
Nice.
And then they come back to us, and then they go back to the moment. It was really great how the whole thing.
All right. So look, everybody's looking to watch some shit right now while they're stuck in quarantine. So what is it? Springsteen and I?
Springsteen and I. Yeah, it's on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Check it on Netflix. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, have any of you else had the opportunity to perform live on stage with your favorite band? How about you, Tim? Tim, you're muted. You muted yourself. Tim,
All right, am I back?
you're back. Yes. You're really you're really playing games with the mute button, by the way.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was a lot of noise going on down here, so I was trying to mute it.
Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, so I got a good story. So
Assistant just brings something into the room
yeah, I was just delivered
off screen. What the fuck was that? What
all
just
right, so off screen, just for everyone to know. I would pick it up right now, but it's very hot and I'd burn my fingers. But my lovely fiance just brought a bowl of, I think, a taco mix. Is that
Right.
correct?
I like how
nice.
you did that. Oh, that's very it's very
By the
mad.
way, Tim, that shit ends when you get married.
Okay. Well, I can't show it.
It's only
hot right
during the engagement.
Puts that dick back to him. Yeah.
But yes, thank you. But yeah, to go back to the question, yeah, I had a experience where so if you know the band Flogging Molly, Irish punk band.
I
So
love
a lot of bands
Who's going to go the young blood of our group. We may know them, we may not. You know what I mean?
It's okay. Just say yes. It's okay.
Okay. Yes, they're great. Fantastic.
So a lot of bands of this generation are trying to find new and inventive ways to do touring, and so a lot of bands have done this cruise idea. Newfound Glory has done it. Paramore has done it. 311's done it. A bunch of bands have done the bring everyone on a cruise, do a cruise, play a couple shows on the boat, play a couple shows on the beach, that kind of thing.
You know, I tell you right now, you're not going to get Mike Walters to go on a cruise because he is totally does not want to be around anybody, and especially after this.
Yes, on the end of my name there, Peter. One more time, I'm clicking off and going to bed.
Mike Walters, you wouldn't want to go on a Prince cruise
I would. You know what? Thank God Prince has passed away before he got to the
on the cruise ship.
cruise level. Yeah, I don't know if I could handle that. I'm going nowhere near a cruise ship these days.
Okay.
Right. Well, I mean, I did a cruise show, and I mean, everybody in that industry is panicked.
I would hope. Yeah.
The whole idea of cruise ships, and I'm going to let you finish your story, Tim, in a second here, is how close you are. I do think cruises are different now, that people are in different sections, but there's still 5,000 or so people all in one place. And with the pandemic, I don't know. Even some of these, these like Aruba, all inclusive shit, right? I mean, are people really going to want to go do that in the next year or so? I don't know. I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
A while for sure.
Yeah. It was a rhetorical.
No, it's going to be a while for sure as far as the.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. But going back to the story here, so part of the cruise experience is they had this thing called punk rock karaoke, and so it was the last event of the night, and they would have a bunch of members from ex-punk bands come on stage. You would ask them a song to put in, and you would play a song with the band with a bunch of like legendary punk rock musicians. So they had Steve Soto, Derek O'Brien, Stan Lee, Greg Edson, people from like the Dickies, people from the Vandals, a bunch of like, punk bands from like the 80s, 90s, and today. And so I got to be on stage and sing a bunch of songs with them, as long as my friend, he got to be on stage with them too. So a cool idea that you got to sing on stage, but you don't even know what's happening behind you because all these bands just come up behind you and start singing with you. It's kind of like a dog pile on of people. If I dig a little bit, I may have a video clip.
Okay. Well, I don't know how you're going to do that because I can't even figure out where the fucking record button is.
Yeah, we can't. We're trying to figure it out here. But yeah.
Chris, what about you?
I had two great stories of performing with some great people. The last original band where I had a record deal and was, trying to make it, dude, we got asked to do a Grammy party at the Rainbow Room in New York City. And it was Thomas Edison's celebration of like 100 years of recorded music, And they invited us on a bill with, is it Joe or John? Joe Bonamassa and Hootie and the Blowfish. And Max Weinberg introduced us. We had the band was called Days of Rain. And so Max Weinberg was like the MC of this entire like thing. And the last people to play were, Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish. And when they were done, the equipment was still up, and it was more like a black tie dinner.
Mhm.
And when we were finished, the guys in we were talking, we're all eating together, we're all talking, and they said, well, the equipment's still up. Do you want to go up and you want to do a song? And I was like, yeah, twist my arm. And we went up and did Ramblin' Man. Lord, I was born a rambling man. And it was just all of us, and everybody took different chances, solos and stuff. Of course, it was before all of the cell phone cameras and everything happened and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah.
But it was us and Hootie and the Blowfish, and I took a verse. Darius took a verse. Took a verse. The solos were going around, and it was just a very cool moment. Now, I'm going to see if I can figure this thing out, because I think I've got something down here.
What do you got?
Watch. Oh, hey, great. Close. Here.
Oh boy! If you go out of here, oh boy! I see your screen. Hold up! I want to add it to the stream. Okay. Wow.
You see
Holy shit! You see why Shipyard is better than everything else here? Look at this.
All right, now watch. Now, you can hear this. Maybe not. Of course not. That is me playing with Nils Lofgren.
Incredible.
If I Should Fall Behind at a benefit together. We did a whole entire night's worth of material, him and I going back and forth. He did a lot of Springsteen and some of his stuff, and I did stuff like Walking to Memphis and stuff like that.
I'm gonna pull this screen.
Oh, was that one of those picture-in-picture deals?
That was a picture in pictures.
That was trippy.
Yeah. Oh, you pulled your the thing anyway. Yeah.
We couldn't hear the audio on it. I was going to play a little of the audio, but it was me and Nils Lofgren the entire night. It was a fundraiser.
Nice.
And backyard. This guy spent more money, I think, in tenting than some of the catering facilities I've ever been to. And the guest list was all sports figures and some music figures and stuff like that. And the entertainment was Nils Lofgren.
Yeah.
And I met him from doing another little benefit that he was doing, and he said, do you want to do this thing with me? And I was like, again, twist my arm, give me a chance to just sit and jam with you all night long. And that was a lot of fun. In the state, and he just had 10. It was one of those things where I'm drinking a glass of wine. I said, this is the best wine I've ever tasted. And one of the guests was Wayne Gretzky. And I said,
my God.
I said, where do we get this wine from? And he says, it's from Wayne Gretzky's private vineyard. I'm like, well, I guess I'll never taste this again.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great night.
Wow.
I'm going to share two stories. Mike, is that okay if I share two?
Go for it, Peter.
No, I'm just kidding. No, because you're the censor here. So I got to sing on stage with Everclear once.
Nice.
Yeah.
You love them too, right?
I love them. Yeah, absolutely. I invited him to come in here. He chose not to. Yeah, I was at a
fuck him. Don't tell his story.
I was at a concert in a small venue. It was just him. And he does this. I mean, and I know Green Day does this shit too, right? Well, they'll invite a guy to play guitar or something like that on stage.
Yeah, my best friend in high school got to go on stage and play guitar with them, and it was like really like deer in headlights moment, like what's going on?
So they don't have a guitar; they had a keyboard guitar. Do you know what that is? The little
guitar.
Yeah, keytar. Well, I was going to say that anyway. He had the keytar, and he was like, "I need someone to play the keytar with me." And so I don't know. It's just like sort of what it's way different for Nick because he's at this big giant fucking Philadelphia Spectrum. I was at a small venue, but the eyes just connected, with Art Alexakis, and I just gave him the look, and he let me come up. And so I was playing Everything to Everyone, if you know that Everclear song. That's like every single one is ding dong ding dong ding dong. That's like pretty much every Everclear song. Anyway, so I got that down pretty much, and so there was a mic right in front of me, you know what I mean, for backing vocals, and I was like, "Fuck, who the fuck? It's only him. Who's gonna take a shot at doing a backing vocal?" So he started getting to the the chord and everything, everyone chorus, and I just did backing vocals, and he loved it, and it was fucking awesome. So I hope that's okay that I shared that Everclear story. Tim?
That's why are you asking me?
No, Peter, you can share whatever you want.
You're the host. You froze, Tim. You froze on that. Yeah. So it was really a lot of fun. All right, let's get to some records. Mike, I mean, have you had an experience where you sang with somebody on stage?
I never did, but Nick's story about getting in the front row when Prince toured with Musicology, which I guess was 2004, I think it was. Prince was always very eager to beat the scalpers. You know, he always had these different schemes. So that year, what he did was he had an online fan club, and you could buy tickets for his show through the fan club, but you didn't get the tickets till you showed up at the arena. And the only thing you were guaranteed to be in one of the first 12 rows. So he played the Garden 3 nights in a row. I had tickets for all 3 nights. First night I showed up and I'm in the 10th row. And I'm like, that's pretty fucking good. So the next night, I think I was just starting to date Kelly at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kelly was my date that night. And as we're walking up on the line, I go, Kelly, if these tickets have an A, because the first 20 rows are lettered in the Garden, if they have an A on it, I'm going to pass out. And sure enough, I'll never forget, I hand the guy my ID, and he looks at it, and he hands me back 2 tickets that say row A. And so Kelly and I were in the front row. And then the next night, I took my sister, and we were in like the 6th row. And I was like, this sucks. What are these 5 rows ahead of us? I can't stand it. You know, you get spoiled after the front row. You never want to go back. But yeah, when Nick told that story about getting in the front, that it reminded me of that.
I will tell one more story. You know, I'm obviously a big diehard Rolling Stones fan, and my dad became friends with somebody that's very closely associated to Keith Richards. I'm not going to get into he probably would hate that I'm even sharing this story. But anyway, you know, he's an Italian dude, and my dad and him always bonded over Italian foods and whatnot. So he was like, we were up in Toronto to see the Stones, and this we were up there because we knew the Stones were going to do a secret club gig, maybe, I don't know, a couple of days later or whatever. And so that's why we went up. And so he said, because my dad had brought all this Italian shit up from, you know, cannolis and all this shit for this dude, because he said the crew would love all this stuff. So he says, okay, come up and meet me at this school. So to me, I didn't really, this is before sort of like you can find out where anything's happening, where the band is. There's not, the internet's not like what it is right now, you know? So we go to this school, which was bizarre. I kept asking my dad, like, why the fuck would we go to a school? You know? Anyway, he brings us in. We walk into the room. It's the fucking rehearsal studio where the Stones are rehearsing for the club gig. And like, I literally walk in and I walk to my right, and Mick Jagger is in full fucking throttle in a room of nobody, just the band, doing Street Fighting Man.
Wow.
That was just the coolest. And then we went up, and he took us up to the upper deck. There was just me, them, the daughters, Mick and Keith's daughters, and 2 chefs that this Tony brought to the table. And, you know, he just brought them in because they also brought a food delivery. And they started dancing. The 2 fucking kids started, the other chefs started dancing, and then he just took us all out of the thing. But I saw about like 8 to 9 songs. He took us down to, and I've never shared this story, so whatever. He took us down. They did a little lunch, like Mick and Keith did a little lunch. They don't eat together. And and then Keith came up, and they introduced me to Keith, and he was like, well, what song? Because they have all these, Ronnie Wood draws all these set lists, you know, like of all the various songs they're rehearsing. And so he's like, what Keith, you know, it's tough, but Keith's like, what song do you want to hear? And I just fucking just said, Start Me Up. You know what I mean? Like, of all the fucking songs that went through my head, and we're going to jump into the records here in a second here, but like, so many songs after, I was like, Start Me Up. Like, what the fuck? Of course they're going to do Start Me Up. What did
How do you feel that you let down your heroes?
Oh, he didn't care. He was like, okay, definitely, because I saw in the fucking list. Of course he was going to do it. You know what I mean? That was a good one though. All right, so let's get to some records now.
Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
Hey, Pete, sorry to interrupt, man.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Dottie was on stage with Southside Johnny. You know Southside Johnny, right?
Yeah.
Southside Johnny. She's got a great story how she got up on stage, and it's on YouTube. You can actually see it. Can I get her to tell the story? It's a quick story, but or
Yeah.
no?
No, well, let's get into the records, and then if we have some time at the end, how's that? Okay. No, that's okay. All right. So, Nick, you weren't with us last time, but what we did is we talked about a lot of this records that made an impact. So I'm going to start with you because we kind of all jumped in last time. What is that first record sort of that made an impact in your life?
The very first record. I mean, music in my family was always there from even when I was just a little kid. We had those old photographs in the living room, and my father, he had all of the Italian singers: Mario Lanza, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Tony Bennett. And I just remember, as far as I could have a memory, I remember him putting those records, especially on the weekend, and
Yeah.
just listening to Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Tony Bennett, all those guys. And it really brought me to music. And then, like everybody, seeing Elvis on TV, got me connected to Elvis. And I remember I must have been like 9 years old. I sang Flaming Star, which is an Elvis song, at a birthday party. I was like 9 or 10 years old. I don't remember.
Right.
It was a girl's birthday party, So, and my dad held a talent show in South Philadelphia on our porch, and he would play music, and then kids would come on the porch and sing with the music and stuff. So it wasn't like that one song that connected me. It was just so young, listening to multiple music that got me involved in.
Do you remember what the first record that you like? Mike told us about Kiss, right? There was a Kiss record that was the first record that he sort of went out and bought. Do you remember what that was for you?
For me,
yeah.
Actually, I think the first album I think I bought was an Elvis album. Actually,
that's appropriate.
And I think it was the Flaming Star album. Actually,
that's interesting. Yeah.
And then my mom bought me the gospel album, his gospel album. And every Sunday I'd wake up to my mom making gravy, the smell of the gravy, and listening to Elvis gospel like really early Sunday morning.
Nice.
So, but to really, it was the music of Springsteen that really, like, you talk about like a connection, like it was that. I think it was 1974. So I guess it was like 13 years old when I really, started listening to Bruce and really felt that connection with music.
That's awesome, man. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on here, because I felt last time, and we all talked about Bruce, right? I mean, we all saw Bruce in some place or some way that we kind of dug in a way, right? But I knew that you had that story about joining him on stage and how impactful he was to you. So would you say a Bruce Springsteen record is the record that shaped you in a way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in high school, I remember, I played baseball for high school, and before every game, I'd crank up Rosalita,
Nice.
before the game. And it just seemed that every emotion I had through high school, whether it was, I asked a girl out and she said no or something, or, I put on a sad Springsteen song, or, was always reaching to Springsteen for that one song to get me through that emotion that I was going through.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys. All right. So, Mike, what are you bringing to us today?
So, yeah, I surprised you last time with Kiss. I think everyone thinks of me as a big Prince fan, but I actually did have some artists that I was into before Prince. And right after my Kiss phase, I got so into that album.
Yes.
Wow.
Bat Out of Hell. Man, I was so into that album. My brother and I got a stereo for Christmas that year. So I guess that would be Christmas 77. And I think he owned the album, but I listened to that fucking thing till I wore the grooves out. And I also had this, which you're too young to remember, Peter, but it was a little handheld football cheesy video game like this. And I can remember hours and hours and hours after school with my headphones on, listening to Bat Out of Hell, playing that little video game.
Yes.
And I remember the song For Crying Out Loud. For Crying Out Loud. I shouldn't sing because I know you guys are great singers.
No,
I'm horrible, but
no.
I know this is such a weird thing, but I remember thinking to myself, what was I, 11 years old? Is any woman ever going to love me like these two love each other in that song? I remember having that vivid thought listening to that song. And anyway, that album, I still love it to this day.
And today you have the answer to that question. You're married to Kelly.
Of course, right. Yes, it has worked out well for me. So,
There you go.
but yeah, I mean, I can't listen to Paradise by the Dashboard Lights because it's a gig song. And
I was going to say, has that been ruined for you? Or?
Every song on that album is, it still clicks for me. It brings me back to that 11-year-old me sitting in my bedroom in my beanbag chair in my bedroom for hours and hours.
I dig that. Now, Tim asked you a question. I'm curious about your answer on that. Has the industry that you're in ruined that song for you?
Oh yeah, no doubt. Doing weddings ruins a lot of songs for me.
Yeah.
Romantics, what I like about you. I loved that song
So good.
before I started DJing. I mean, it came out when I was a teenager. It was a big party song. But yeah, I mean, when you play something, like my wife will tell you, I call certain songs gig songs. And I love what they do for me at work, but I don't want to hear them in my off time. Don't Stop Believing has become that. I used to love Journey's Don't Stop Believing.
Mhm.
Now I'll play it at almost every gig I do, but I skip it if it comes on the radio.
Now, Paradise has become, at least in my opinion, is the DJ's cigarette break song because it goes on for so long. Like, I feel like a lot of people are like, all right, I gotta.
That's your lazy DJ. Me as an MC, I'm out on the dance floor, splitting the crowd, getting the bride.
Oh yeah, you
singing,
gotta
getting
be
the groove singing.
interactive.
So yeah, I mean, your lazy DJs can go take a shit or go to have a cigarette, but not somebody like me.
I'm going to ask.
Fair enough.
I'm going to say this, Mike. You do a lot of seminars and a lot of amazing stuff. I mean, what do you got going on right now? Right, I'm sure there's something that you're.
I'm working on a seminar that I'll be presenting this August, assuming that there is a DJ Hexpo in August, and it's all about programming. It's all about songs and building sets and putting sets together and reading crowds and everything else. So. Yeah, I mean, we talked about silver linings a little bit earlier. I have put more time and effort into this seminar, building the seminar and getting it perfected. And I'm not presenting it for another 4 months. You know, usually it's a month or two beforehand. I'm scrambling to get everything together. I've got more than enough content for 90 minutes and it's already 4 months in advance.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, when you start the next seminar, can't you get everybody in the room and say, listen, Paradise by the Dashboard Lights, let's pull it out of our fucking circulation so
but
that
it's not us, it's Peter. It's the clients who ask for it. It's not. Believe me, I never play Paradise by the Dashboard Lights unless I'm asked for it.
Yeah.
But when I'm asked for it, it goes over great because it's usually a crowd that loves it and wants to. So who am I to deny them of that?
Not gonna lie though, when it comes on, I'm ready to fucking sing my heart out. So
Of course, yeah.
This depends on the bride too. I mean, some brides just don't know it. They
Oh,
don't.
true. Yeah.
You know, and some brides, their family raised them on it.
Chris, would you ever drop that song on a crowd if you're not asked for it?
No,
Me either.
it needs to be on the playlist.
It's one of those request-only songs. If the bride asks for it or somebody significant at a wedding asks for it, I'll play it. But if not, because it's one of those songs that if you drop it on the wrong crowd, not only are they walking away, but like Tim pointed out, they're walking away for 9 minutes. So you know,
Now,
you can't play that song unless they've asked.
question: there's a big break in that song where they start talking.
I love
to the
about this
baseball
show.
guy.
Whatever happens. Tim has got a question. We're just gonna let him go for
Yeah.
it.
All right,
Yeah.
so there's two songs that are staples in the sense that have a big lull in the middle. One is Paradise, and one is Shout. And with Shout, I think a lot of DJs they'll take out that middle chunk where it's like where people are waiting, like it's just killing time.
Yeah.
And so that actually helps keep the energy going.
I
Now-
have edited that out. I have a jump point.
You might do. I keep that right out.
Yeah, and I love that because for video it sucks because we're just waiting there like, all right, let's get to the next part where people get nuts again, which I think is great. Is there a way to do that with Paradise? Because that baseball part,
Not really,
everyone's
because
kinda
the
waiting for
baseball
that one
part
person
is
to do a slide.
people love that.
No pop.
People love to hear.
Some people love it. Some people are like, we're waiting for it. So
Well, the baseball part is when I usually separate the entire.
Right, Chris. Right,
Okay,
because
so
the
it's the
sing along
build.
part happens right after that. So that's the platform for us to get everybody situated. Yeah.
If Meatloaf was watching this, he'd say, "Go fuck yourself with that question."
Don't skip my song. Yeah.
Have you guys ever seen the Meatloaf when he was on the Celebrity Apprentice and threw a bunch of crayons? I don't know if you ever saw that, but Google that shit. That's brilliant.
By the way, Phil Rizzuto, after that song became a hit, he claimed that he didn't know that his play-by-play was a double entendre for, two people making out in the backseat of a car. But Meatloaf said that's bullshit. He just said that because he's a good Catholic boy, and his local priest was like, "What'd you do that for?" So he denied he denied that he had anything to do with it. But Meatloaf says that's bullshit.
That's a really good. I'm glad that you brought that. That was a very different record. I dig that, man. That's a good one. Okay, Chris, what do you got, man?
Now, to surprise you too, because you know me, like Mike was Prince. I'm the Billy Joel guy.
Totally.
Here's an album that has stuck with me, followed me everywhere, and now I have visuals because I felt left out because everybody had a visual last time. This time I have one.
All right.
Oh, nice.
Is that the Eagles?
California.
Yeah, Hotel California.
Did you go to the album?
That album, again, it was one of those albums. But of course, when it came out in '77, listened to it all the time. But it really stuck with me in my 20s. Again, it was one of those things where the album was long enough where my commute from West Orange, where I grew up, to William Patterson College was side one. And William Patterson College back to West Orange was side two. And, when I say to musicians, and Mike, you know what, other than not being able to physically play, your knowledge of music and music itself, you'll understand this. When I say to people, I lived in this album, it's one of those things where I've put the headphones and I've listened to things. I hear little guitar parts in the back, little things, little subtleties.
I love it.
The fact that, there's more than 4 different vocalists on this record. One of my favorite tracks is not one of their biggest hits on this record. It's Try and Love Again. That whole harmony in the last part of that song, just the way that album, and it was the staple at that time for all of the music coming out of Southern California in the 70s. If you see the history of the Eagles, I love when Glenn Frey talks about what's his name? He just got sick with the coronavirus. Got to be somebody's Jackson Brown. When Jackson
really?
Brown
I know that. Yeah.
would write a song by putting his teapot on, and he'd be working on something, and then the teapot would go off because they all lived in basically like a commune. He was upstairs, this one's downstairs, and they all worked together. And it's so funny that all of their music all came out at once too. But that record in particular, just Hotel California itself, to open up an album like that, and then where do you go from there? An electric piano for New Kid in Town, and then Victim of Love, and it's so eclectic, but it still all works together as one cohesive piece of art. That's why I love that record so much. Oh, and one thing about Don't Stop Believin', the reason why I believe Don't Stop Believin' became like a wedding staple is The Sopranos.
Yes.
And I'll never forget the night watching that finale. And it was building and building and building and building. And he's sitting there at Holston's, and he puts in that quarter, and I'm like, what the hell is he going to play? And as soon as you heard, I'll never forget it. As soon as you heard the opening piano, the first thing I thought of, because the director of The Sopranos loved to match music with the moment. As soon as I heard that opening piano, I'm like, what a great, because at that point I hadn't heard it. It was one of those songs that was so far removed that when he played it, it was like, oh, what a great piece of music. Cut to, what is it now, 12 years later? If I ever hear that damn song, I sing it dirty because I stopped believing years ago, but I still sing it because it goes freaking huge.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah. To each, I think you said something there about you lived in a record, right? And Mike, I think we could probably say the Pete Yorn record that we talked about last week, right? That you're going through a lot. You probably lived in that record. I think that's
yeah, no doubt. And the amazing thing about that is when you listen to a record that bore that deeply into your soul, it can immediately bring you back to that time.
Yeah.
You know, I put that Pete Yorn record on, and it's 20 years ago, and I'm going through my divorce again, and I'm going through all this other stuff, and that's me 20 years ago. And I think that's the amazing thing about music. I don't think there's any other art form that can do that, because there's no other art form that you relive. I mean, think about your favorite movie ever. How many times have you watched it?
25 times. Let's
Right.
say,
But how many times have you listened to your favorite album ever?
Right. Mhm.
Right. I mean, I listened to that Peter Yorn record. I listened to that 25 times in a row when it was first out.
I know
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's different. There's no other art form that you just consume in mass like that, and it just stamps itself on your
particular
chart.
songs now because of the fucking everything's digital and Spotify and all that shit. You know what I mean? Now I would imagine, like, if there's one particular song from that record that really grips you, you might listen to that 2 or 3 times on repeat.
Yeah,
just to get yourself into that moment. But I do think that music does that too. Tim, do you have what record are you going to bring? Is it a record that you were that you lived in?
A little bit, yeah. So like last time I went with more of roots, and then this one time I wanted to go with more of I guess the build into really more of who I am. So I went with a high school band. So if you want to, you can take 3 guesses what I'm going to use today. Yeah. So I'm going with Finch, which you're probably like, who the fuck is that? You probably all know. Yeah.
never heard of him.
Yeah.
Okay, the T-shirt didn't even help us. We were like, is it the album?
If it wasn't bold
You could have
enough
had
for
the
you,
band standing behind you. Come on in, guys.
Brilliant. Yeah.
They weren't busy tonight.
Yeah, they got nothing going on. No, so just to give you guys a quick little lesson as far as this goes. So like in the early 2000s, screamo, emo, that whole thing became huge, and that was just the time when I was in high school. So to put it in perspective, I'm getting my guitar, I'm getting albums. High school was when you get all like it's all singing and kind of thing. So this was a band that was probably during the time was big for me, but not nearly as big until I realized it later on. And their first album, What It Is to Burn, all the way through is just like every track is just amazing. So so it's one of those things where their second and third, like everything since then's been kind of, no one's cared really, but that first album within the scene, everyone has thought as like it's been perfect. So they broke up one time, and then they finally came back 10 years later, and they had a visual aid time. They had a 10-year anniversary tour. So I have a ticket here from the first show and the last show signed by the guitarist. So I stayed after at the Irving Plaza to get him to sign it again. And I was like, "Oh, do you remember?" kind of thing. He's like, cool. "Oh yeah, sure." He didn't fucking remember, but it's fun that I have him at the same concert venue 10 years apart, and yeah. That's kind of cool.
Chris, Tim, why did you? Cause I just wanted to, Anthony Shilia said that you played to Chris, "Don't Stop Believing" at the end of his wedding. So there you go. Okay. Just reading some of the comments. I would like to just keep everybody inclusive that's listening.
I'm going to shout him out. He shouted me out on his podcast. So Anthony!
There you go. Tim, why was there something about that Finch record? And to all of us that don't know what Finch is, sorry, but what about that Finch record? Why were you in it? Was there something going on personally at the time that drew you to it?
I think it's probably just a mix of, when you're in your high school, you're in that angsty period, and it was very screamy, very energy based, and it had a visceralness to it, but it also had like an emotional side to it. So I think it balanced the two. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reasons it's kind of carried on as still a thing I can still listen to, as opposed to a lot of the other kind of post-hardcore music that came out at the time, is there is still a melodic quality to it. Because like a lot of metal music and hard music, for a lot of people, they may like when they're younger, but when they get older, like, I can't listen to this. This is just like, it's just loud and annoying. But I think it comes down to having good melodies and having good hooks. And it still has that. And to this day, it's one of those, I call it my breaking case of emergency album, in the sense that, like, say like I'm coming back home from a gig and I'm really tired. I'll put that album on, and I'm awake. I'm ready to go. I'm singing along with it. I'm good to go.
But that's smart that you only do that in emergency, Tim, because no
In
matter how good
emergency,
a
you
record
don't want-
is, if you do that too often, eventually it dulls the effect. So
Yeah.
you really need to parse that out a little bit. Yeah.
I
So.
should bring up a point about music in general. Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that. Well, I mean, if you go back to LimeWire and Napster, it kind of ruined music for, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but it kind of ruined it for me.
Definitely.
One of my favorite things ever is like when I was driving home before all those streaming services came out or downloading services came out, and you'd hear a song that you haven't heard in 1,000 years. Like Blind Side of Light, Man for Man's version of that. There's the one where they actually cut the guitar solo, and then there's the one with the 7-minute, the whole guitar solo. Right. And you're driving home, and back when 102.7 used to play, rock and roll, you'd hear it and you go, oh man, I haven't heard it. And then you get that one little cue and you go, oh shit, it's the 7-minute version. They're going to do the guitar solo in this.
Right.
That's just totally gone now, because if I want to hear it, it's just click, click, spot, boom. And that's it. It's kind of taking that out of it. For now.
I definitely agree with that, in the sense that you can have it at the turn of a dial. But however, if you are on radio and a song comes on that you've heard 1,000 times, but you really like, it still has a little bit of a special moment, but I'm sure it's not nearly as special as it is when there was no Spotify.
I do miss sort of the random, that spontaneous sort of moment in which a song comes on the radio and you remember that time and place and where you were and why it's important to you. It is definitely lost. Nick, what about you? Do you have something, hearing us talking about specific records like this, do you have something similar with us? You were in, that you lived in.
Yeah. Well, first off, being in the band for years, and I hated freaking doing old time rock and roll.
Right.
And by Seeger, I mean, it was like I got to a point where I just didn't put it on the set list, and they're like, you got to play it because everybody wants to hear it. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. It's like, I hated that song. So what you talked about earlier, but I mean, I remember when exactly where I was when We Are the World came out. It was a premiere on the radio, and I was in the car with this guy, and we were both like big Springsteen fans, and we really wanted to hear it because we wanted to hear where we knew Springsteen was in it. We wanted to hear where he was at, But oh yeah, man, so many songs you hear and you go, holy shit, and all of a sudden it brings you to that moment of 30 years ago, 20 years ago, that whatever it was, Mike, you said about, a song maybe reminded you, brought you back to when you got divorced, same with me and things like that, man.
What song is that for you? What is that record? What is the record that brings you there all the time?
Well, again, it was just many different records of different situations, when I was in grade school and, for whatever reason, Lion Sleeps Tonight. I remember I was in grade school and we had a boy-girl party.
Right.
And we would shut the lights off, and the boys and girls would kiss, we played music. And for whatever reason, the Lion Sleeps Tonight was part of that whole thing. And I don't know. So, yeah, it's just, there's so many songs where I probably can't even think of it right now. But if I hear it, I'm like, holy shit, right away, the memory hits my head, of the situation.
All right.
This though, with everybody saying something, like he said, the Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Right.
And he had that memory of that boy-girl party. But I bet every one of you were remembering where maybe you heard it somewhere, where you were in your life when you've heard it. So you have your version of a Nick story.
Totally.
Or like when Mike was talking about Bat Out of Hell, I was like, I'm at my aunt's house and my cousins are playing it for the first time ever. And I'm listening Thanksgiving. Everybody's got a story associated. They're more popular, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, but everybody's got their own little movie playing in their head for the people.
Absolutely.
Tim, do you have? When did you hear Lion Sleeps Tonight?
Me?
Yeah.
Honestly,
I threw you under the bus there. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm gonna probably go with Sandlot. The movie. The movie The Sandlot. That's why it reminds me of the first thing I think of is that the one moment where they're going into the clubhouse. Have you guys seen the movie The Sandlot?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, yes, they play that, and they're going up to the bunk beds and the bunk beds into the clubhouse, and they're about to tell like stories and toast s'mores. That's what I think of.
Yeah.
And then maybe Lion King. There's in Lion King too.
All right, the record I'm gonna pick. Let's see.
Tom Petty.
Full Moon Fever, good record.
Tom
record.
Petty's Full Moon Fever. For me, listen, this record came out in 1989.
Did
I was
you have it on vinyl or CD?
vinyl. Yep, and I bought it. And it was probably the first record I bought other records, but my mom bought them. Like that Tom Petty record was the first record I remember spending money on. And I debated it. You know what I mean? Like I debated whether I had the $12 or whatever it was for the Tom Petty record. But man, I lived in that Tom Petty record. I mean,
So how old were you?
let's see. So I was born in 76. This is 89.
You were 13.
13. Yeah.
Yeah.
13 years old. That's my thing. And listen, I love Free Falling. I love Running Down a Dream, but what about like You're So Bad, right? And I Won't Back Down and whatnot. I mean, to me, I just think I don't know. And when Tom Petty passed away, this was the first record I went back to. I lived in it. And it's funny because I was 13, so probably in 1989 there was a lot of other records that kids would be listening to. Tom Petty was not necessarily Milli Vanilli, right? You know what I mean? It wasn't the pop album by any means, but yeah, I mean that record just fucking did everything for me. And that there's one track on that record that I always go back to. All Right for Now. I don't know if you guys know that one. It's like a little Tom Petty lullaby.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful fucking song. I love singing it. I love playing it. It just always speaks to me. So when Tom Petty died, that song I just kept pretty much putting on fucking repeat. Yeah. All right. What else you got, guys? What about another like little rarity? You got something else, Mike?
So I don't think this is too rare because it was a huge record at the time, but I'll never forget the first time I heard this record. When I first moved out to Jersey in '88, I started working for a DJ company, and I was working nonstop but working in the office during the week and working every weekend. And it was probably about 6 months into it that I had my first day off, and I went into the city. Walking around the Village, which was one of my favorite areas in the city. And I walked into a pizzeria and was just having a slice. And the guy had this album on. It had just come out. Sinead O'Connor, I Do Not Want What I Have Not Got. And I'll never forget I was sitting at the counter having a slice of pizza. And I probably heard 2 songs of the album. And I was like, who is this? I don't know who this is. Because I wasn't familiar with her first album. And he showed me, I think he had it on cassette. He showed me the cassette. I stayed in that pizzeria for the next half hour listening to that record. And then I went to the Tower Records 2 blocks away and bought it. And I've loved that album since that moment. Brings me back to, so what am I in '89? I'm 23 years old, finally kind of venturing out on my own. I have my own, my career was just getting started and I was like an adult because I had my first apartment. And that fucking record brings me back to that. Now, obviously, she covers a Prince song in it, Nothing Compares to You, but that's not even why I fell in love with the album. I just fell in love with her voice. And she's never reached the height of that album. I bought everything she's ever put out since then. P.S. I was supposed to go see her tomorrow night. We had tickets tomorrow night. Chris, you and I were supposed to go see Billy Joel last Friday night. That got scrapped. And then tomorrow night, a couple of us, Kelly and I, and 2 friends of ours, were supposed to go see her at City Winery, that tiny little place.
Right.
But she is probably my favorite female singer. I love her voice. I know she's gone cuckoo the last couple of years and she's kind of crazy. But that record is called I Do Not Want What I Have Not Got. And one of my all-time, they call it Desert Island Disc, whatever. I just love it.
Now, I'll tell you, I don't know what year it was, but it was the year that she ripped up the picture of the Pope.
Yep. 91, I think, 90 or 91.
In New York City, there was a tribute show to Bob Dylan. I was at this tribute show.
You were at that because that's when she left the stage crying.
Yes.
Yeah, she got booed. That was like a week or 2 after that moment.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peter. You tell the story if you were there.
I'll tell you my perspective, but like my dad is a big like if a group of people are booing, he boos. He doesn't even necessarily.
he just he succumbs to peer pressure. That's funny.
Right. He's always. I remember back on wrestling, if everyone booed the Iron Sheik, he booed. You know what I mean? So anyway, she came out, and there was that Saturday Night Live thing, which we all had seen, and
yeah.
It was dramatic, whatever. And then I never thought though. I mean, I was a kid when I was 13, like I said. So, or what was 15, 91 when that happened. You said, right?
I think so. I know it was a couple years after I Do Not Want What I Have.
I remember being
let's say it was 91. I don't know.
Okay, let's argument's sake, but I remember being like high schoolish. So,
I'm not trying to work a shameless plug in here, but I do write about it in my book. That was not a shameless plug.
Who the fuck are you going to give a free book to?
So if anybody wants to flip through and look it up, I know it's in there.
Oh, you wrote a book?
So yeah, Nick is the newbie in the room. He's definitely going to get a signed copy and sent right to him. I'm just kidding, but so I remember being in that moment, and I was super excited to see her because I loved that song. I didn't really have I don't want to be controversial here, but I didn't really have a problem with it because I knew that what she was trying to say in that moment with ripping up the picture was different than probably how it was being perceived, right? So I was just curious to see what she was going to say or what she was.
She was kind of ahead of the curve because most people at the time didn't know how heinous the Catholic Church was as far as child molestation. And I think as the news came out years later, people went, "Yeah, she kind of had a point,"
Right. For sure. And then and then everybody started booing in New York, man. We talked last week, they booed Prince off the stage at a Stones show, So my dad is booing, and I was like, but why? I said, why are you booing her? And I don't think she actually sang anything. I think she did spoken word or some spoken like a cappella song. And then I'm going to say it was Fogerty. Maybe John Fogerty walked her off stage and was whispering some shit to her. Do you remember that part of it, Mike?
Shit, because I mentioned it's not Fogerty, but I do mention it in the book. I forget who it was.
Yeah,
Chris Christopherson.
Yeah, that's who it was. Chris
Christopherson. Yeah.
And
from the story that I heard is that he put his arm around her and said, "Don't let the bastards get you down." And she said, "I'm not down."
Yeah,
but she did walk off crying.
And so just an interesting moment in time, and I couldn't believe that it as a kid that I was witnessing that kind of history.
Yeah.
But fucking that's a good
I call that moment the greatest act of career suicide or sabotage of any. I don't think anyone has ever torpedoed their career as succinctly as she did. I mean, she was the record that I love was huge, and she was on the rise as far as being a pop star. And that one moment, I mean, she became persona non grata.
And
by the way, that was October 3rd of 1992.
Okay.
So that was about a couple years.
And just for the record, Anthony Scalia wrote is public schools have more pedophiles. Okay, nobody.
And you can find that moment, that SNL moment, on YouTube.
Yeah,
she rips up the picture and says, "Fight the real enemy," and I think it's 3 seconds before they cut to a commercial, and that doesn't sound long, but you watch that moment and it feels like 3 minutes.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because in television, 3 seconds of dead air and awkwardness is pretty substantial.
Sure. But nobody was attacking the Catholic Church here in that moment at all. We were just sharing that story. So
I will gladly attack the Catholic Church. They have hidden pedophiles for decades. Are we defending that, Peter? Are you going to defend that?
I opened the
Pandora's box has been opened.
I put the little Band-Aid on the comment. I put the little Band-Aid, and then you ripped it right open.
Sorry, Peter. Anybody who puts money in the collection box of the Catholic Church is helping to support pedophiles. I'll say it. Okay. Sorry.
It has been said here.
Hey, Pete, I got a quick story, and maybe all the DJs could relate. So during my 4 years of college, 4.5 years and some summers of college, I was a DJ, and I wanted to start my own business as a disc jockey. So a buddy of mine knew a guy was selling his direct drive turntables in Maryland. So I drove to Maryland, took out a loan, a $500 loan. I bought 2 turntables, an amp, whatever I needed, right? I was a senior in college. This was 1980, 1983, early 1983. And so I got all this equipment, and I'm like, shit, man, what am I going to do for records? So I'll never forget it. On a Sunday, I'm sitting in my apartment at college, and I'm looking at the newspaper, and you know those ads where you buy buy 12 albums for 1 penny, and then
Columbia House.
every month,
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, man. I said I could get 12 albums for a penny, and then I thought, wait a minute, 12 albums for 1 penny, 24 albums for 2 pennies. So I started filling out my brother's name, my name, and everything. Within like a few weeks, I had like 60 albums coming in. And my roommates were like, oh my God, and the very first album I played with my stuff was Born to Run.
Nice.
I'll never forget it. But that's how I started my DJ business, was a $500 loan. And I committed to like, I don't know how many.
So did Columbia House ever track you down to make good on the other stuff?
Hey, you know what though? I did. I made good though, man. I did. I paid the ridiculous amount then for records after that. They ripped you after that, but I did, man. I fulfilled every one after that.
That's all.
Mike, you really offended the room.
Oh, did I? Sorry.
No, I understand. It's okay. Hey, it's live at night. Whatever.
Sorry, facts are facts.
No. So, anyway, what do you got, Chris? You got another one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but Chris is he's gonna give us the Holy Bible music.
Is that Elton John?
Yep.
Nice. Another good one.
I think this should be part of the game. Just hold up an album cover and see who can get it first. It's like name that album cover.
It is hard to see. Yeah.
To me, more the B-sides that made that album great. I loved Candle in the Wind before Candle in the Wind was Candle in the Wind.
Was Candle in the Wind a B-side?
No. What I'm just saying,
it was just a track. It was a track. It was an album track. In other words,
album tracks more than the hits. I mean, you had Benny and the Jets, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, just Saturday Nights Are Right for Fighting. But it was the songs like that were the album cuts that really stood out with me. Like, and some radio stations play some of these things like Harmony, but All the Young Girls Love Alice.
Mm-hmm.
That was a great song. Sweet Painted Lady, Roy Rogers, Dirty Little Girl.
Nice.
These, again, another album, and it was a double album at the time too. This is one of those albums that I just absolutely and of course, like as always, when you have those albums, it was a time in your life.
Yeah.
Where shit was going sideways. And I don't know. I mean, each person on here, I guess, is an artist in their own way.
Sure.
In the artist's mind, we always think abstractly, and the best time to just dive into music is just when shit's going sideways. Nick, you would say, like, I was like in the middle of the war, and this song, that album, I was 16 when I really first started getting into it. I mean, I knew all the singles, but I started getting into the album when I was 16. And my parents were getting a divorce. Shit was going sideways at school with my best girlfriend and all of that stuff. And just to come home when you had the stereo systems that were component units that stood this high, with each piece. And I just throw on a set of headphones, no different than this one, and just forget about life for a while and just live in that record. That was the thing with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Did you guys see the Elton John the film? I don't remember the name of it, but the one that just came out this year. But they were
I thought it was great.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, Rocket Man, right?
Yeah.
It was done musical. The telling the story of Elton's story using his music as music, sort of.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people didn't like it because it came on the heels of Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a much more linear telling of the Queen story. And so people went into the Elton John movie thinking it was going to be the same thing. Yeah, and it wasn't. Right. To me, it was closer to The Greatest Showman. If you saw that movie a couple years ago. Yeah. I recommend that, Peter. I really like that. It was basically a musical of Barnum's life.
Yeah.
And but it took liberties and it was a typical musical. Yeah. And I thought the Elton John movie was the same way.
Nice.
Bohemian Rhapsody's timeline was
Well, right, but my point was it wasn't a musical. They never left reality. I mean, Elton John starts levitating on a stage at one point. Sorry, spoiler alert.
That never happened.
That never happened to him. I mean, it might have if you were on the right drugs, but it didn't really happen. So yeah, I'm sure some people were like, "What the hell are we watching right now?" But it's musical fantasy, whatever you want to call it.
Tim, do you have a secondary record for us?
Oh yeah, so I mean, first round I did my childhood album. This round I did the high school album. So I'll go with my newest one.
Please make it be something we fucking have heard of.
No, no, Tim, be as obscure as you want.
All right, so
here's Queen.
Rip this T-shirt off and have another one underneath, please.
Missed opportunity.
I love it, man.
No, but to go in the lines that we were talking a lot about Bruce this time around. So we also talked recently about the newest album that actually influenced you. So I think in the last maybe let's say 5 years, it's hard to find new music that really inspires you or gets you excited.
Right.
And I finally found a band that I was like, whoa, this is actually really, really cool. And they're called the Menzingers. So there were another band similar to the Gaslight Anthem that a lot of people have compared to kind of like a modern day Bruce Springsteen in the sense that they have that kind of singer songwriter vibe to it. They tell it's more about storytelling. It's got a heart to it that a lot of stuff that just doesn't have nowadays. But they also had the kind of a hard punk edge to them. So they were enough for me as far as hitting me at the right time. It kind of spoke to me in the sense that their lyrics were about people being in the 30s and not like a lot of the punk rock stuff that comes out nowadays, which is about being in high school and being a teenager, which I don't really care about anymore. So it kind of transitions myself. So it was interesting in that sense. Now, can we do screen sharing on here?
There is a share screen, and I'm going to pull my.
Let's see here.
I got mine ready to go.
Let's see. Can I just share? I'll share this then. So this was a boat show. I saw them for the first time, and this was on a boat and in New York City. Can you hear me still?
Yeah. Yeah, we just have to approve it. Hold up. Boom. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is on a boat, crowded. This is the first time I saw them. It was the most nuts thing I think I've ever seen. Wow. I'm pretty sure they probably did not.
You shot this, Tim?
This is on a boat. I was probably 5 feet away from this. As a friend of mine.
You filmed it, he asked you. Did you shoot this?
I did not shoot this personally. I did not want to put my cell phone in danger. But yeah, it was crazy. People lost their minds because it was one of those things. The band just hit right at the right time, and this boat was I thought we were going to have a Titanic moment where this thing was going down because everyone jumping at the same time, the weight of everybody, and people just lost their marbles. But anyway, I'll stop sharing that.
It's amazing.
Peter, was this supposed to be music that we heard on a boat? I missed it. I think I missed it.
No, you probably have not heard this on a boat.
A lot of cruise ship. Yeah, and then Nick Ferrara was talking about cruising and all this other stuff, right? Didn't you mention that you used to play on a boat too?
Yeah, with the Fabulous Heartbreak Band. We were a 7-piece band, and I was with them for 9 years, and we were a show band, so we did dance music, and then we did the Patsy Cline show, the Elvis show. We did a tribute to rock and roll show where I dressed up as Buddy Holly and things like that. And every summer we'd play on a cruise ship, and they were the best, the best gigs, man.
Awesome.
Playing on the cruise ship. I remember the one year it was the only time we did this. We usually did a whole week on a cruise. We left either out of New Orleans or Philadelphia, or one time we left out of Miami, New York. But the one year we left out of New York, and it was broken up into 2 separate cruises. It was funny. It was a weekend cruise where it was just a party cruise. It just went out in the water and came back. And that was the most craziest time that we ever played on a cruise ship, because it was just nothing but just drinking literally for 2 days straight. Nobody slept. And then we got off on that Sunday, and then they cleaned the ship, and then we got back on for a 5-day cruise. I think we went to Bermuda then, and it was families and stuff like that. Right. And I remember sitting there one time looking damn, man, that was the exact spot where that guy threw up at. You know, we were on the party cruise, and that was it was so funny, man. It was like how two different cruises, but they were just a lot of fun, man. Because we played so many different nights. You know, we played on the pool side, and then we played indoors. We did a show one night. We did dance music one night. It was just a lot of different things. So
very awesome. All right.
Am I the only one that saw the video that Tim put up and thought those people are not social distancing? They're touching each other. Wash your hands. Like, it's only been a month, but that's how I'm like, oh no, those people are.
And reality is, look, we all talked about concerts that we were going to, or concerts we couldn't, amazing moments. What does that look like moving forward? Right. I mean, I do wonder about the idea of going to a concert and standing next to somebody that and there being no social distancing.
Peter, we're going to get back there eventually. I mean, I don't know how long, but we're going to get back there eventually. Don't you think?
I saw an article that said 2021 fall, which was really depressing, but
but I wouldn't be surprised for something like that. But then again, kids are going to go back to school, and there's 500-600 kids in a school, but you can't go to the park.
I mean, I was just talking to my friends about it. I was saying that there might be some kind of like almost interim period where there's an exclusivity where they'll like people that we like to see live maybe just have a lot more of an intimate show where people are more spread apart.
Yeah.
So like people that are used to playing thousands and thousands of people may play for like 50 or 100 people, and it just may be a more expensive ticket, and they'll probably shove it off as saying like, oh, like half of it's going towards a charity, and that's the way they kind of like smooth it off as not ripping people off, but they got to survive somehow, right?
Right.
So maybe a way in the interim to kind of like figure that out.
Yeah. Hey, Nick, also just to throw this out, you have family members that are nurses and whatnot. How are they doing? I wanted to just check in on that.
Yeah. So 3 of our 4 children are on the front lines. One is a nurse at a hospital, and she just got done a 2-week quarantine. She was exposed to the virus. One of her patients was tested positive, and we actually thought that my grandson, her youngest child, I have 5 grandchildren. My youngest grandchild got tested because he was having symptoms, but thank God it turned out negative. So she went through quarantine, and as soon as she got done the quarantine, man, next day she's back at the hospital.
Crazy.
That was my one daughter, and then my other daughter's a nurse practitioner. She got exposed. She was in quarantine. She got tested, and as soon as the test came back negative, now it took 8 days to get the results because this was like maybe 4 weeks ago, so it was right early on in the testing. And as soon as it came back negative, the next day she was back at work.
Yeah.
And then our third child, 4, we have 4. Nicky is he works for Bimbo, which is a food. They do English muffins and things like. And he has a manager position, but it's all hands on deck. So he's getting up at 3 a.m. and he lives in the Philly area, and he drives to North Jersey. He's been doing this now for the last, I think, 3 weeks. And he's helping unloading trucks. He's helping stocking shelves. He's there every day, man, doing whatever needs to be done, whatever needs to be done. So, but anyway, yeah. So thanks for asking. So thank God everybody's good, but they're out there, man, every day.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to give you my last record. I went back to Roots.
Yep.
Sticky Fingers.
Sticky Fingers.
Great record. Great album. Is that an original album cover?
It is. Yeah.
With the zipper?
Zipper.
That's worth some money, Peter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the zipper right now, but
designed by. Don't say
too racy to do the zipper.
Don't say the answer. Who designed that album cover? Anyone else?
Is it Andy Warhol or something?
Very good, Tim. Very good.
Oh, Stones. Yeah.
Soup.
Just I said tattoo you last week or whenever we did the last one.
Yeah.
And that was because it was when I was a kid. But then when I really wanted to get into the Stones, this was the record that I kept going to from the hard rockers like Brown. And I sort of was reminded of this record when you did your push-up challenge, Mike. You reposted your push-up challenge a few days ago. And so many tunes that you shout it out.
What's on Shattered is on that, right?
No, it's Brown Sugar, it's Wild Horses, it's Can't You Hear Me Knocking,
Okay.
Bitch, it's
Dead Shatter is on Some Girls, right?
Yeah, right. Which will be next time.
Okay. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, but no. And then that was when I realized that a kid in high school told me that Mick Taylor was the guitar player on that record that did all the soloing on Can't You Hear Me Knocking. And that opened up my fascination with his solo work in that time period. So Sticky Fingers to me, man, I think is probably the Stones' best record, and I couldn't not acknowledge it.
You'd have to convince me off of Exile on Main Street because that's still my favorite. But
I'm with you on that.
Maybe someday I'll reconsider that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think Exile is an amazing record, but there's something about that Sticky Fingers record that I think it packs everything in that 10-song punch.
Yeah.
Has Rolling Stones ever done like album shows? Have they done the album show?
They have done that. It's funny that you mentioned this. They have done that in the last couple of years. They did Sticky Fingers in its entirety, but they had just done a couple of tours where they brought Mick Taylor back to play on it. And I was not a fan of the Ronnie Wood interpretation of this, so I stopped watching after 2 songs because, to me, I felt like if you had worked with Mick Taylor on a previous reunion tour, why not just include him on this one as well? Because
what do you mean you stopped watching? You walked out of the arena?
Oh no, I'm sorry. This was I didn't go to see it live. It was
okay.
One show. Right. Yeah, they did one show, and then they released like an iTunes release of that particular show.
Got it.
Yeah, but I just was, and I love Ronnie Wood. Listen, I love him on Some Girls. If they did a Some Girls show or a Tattoo You show, I would watch that in its entirety. But him trying to interpret or play the solo on Can't You Hear Me Knocking, it's just or the Sway solo or whatnot. It's just Mick Taylor and Mick Jagger pretty much wrote this record, which is like a lot of people don't know because of Keith's absence and his drug problems and whatnot. Right. So a lot of the material on it is those 2 guys. So I felt like let's take the moment to bring him back and do the right thing. They didn't, so I did the right thing and didn't watch the reunion of that album. I'm sure Mick does not care because there was plenty of people that did. Well, hey guys, I think we rocked this again, and I love doing this. And maybe next time we'll get Glenn from the B Street Band on too to add some more. And we'll try to find some other participants. If you guys think of any other participants you'd like to include in this conversation, I think we should do it again. This was Live at Night. Thank you guys for being here. And hopefully this actually aired. I've never used StreamYard before. I
looked at one point. It was on Facebook.
All right, good.
We had 4 people watching, so that's not great. But it was and that might include all of us. So that's not good.
It's funny enough. I think it was when you went head to head with the Catholic Church.
You think I lost you, listeners? Sorry. If you don't have me back on again, I understand.
No, I would have you on every week. You know what I mean? So awesome. All right, man. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate this. I'll see you next time.
Stay healthy, everybody.
All right. Later.
Yep. Everybody.